Welcome to Before the Crisis, a podcast about aging, advocacy, and helping families navigate the hard stuff before it turns into an emergency. I'm Liz Keller, case manager, realtor, and lifelong advocate for seniors. On this podcast, we'll talk honestly about aging, dementia, care decisions, family dynamics, and the complicated government systems that were meant to protect and support people, but often leave families carrying the burden all by themselves. Here's where you will learn that planning matters, dignity matters, and that no senior, regardless of financial means, should ever be left behind. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you.
All right, so we have not had a show for a while because I've been kind of busy and I've been kind of delayed. So with our name change, with moving from the golden hour to Before the Crisis, you are the first one back. And with that, I thought we've got to come back with a bang. So we're coming back with a bang today.
Okay.
So first of all, before we get started on our conversation today, introduce yourself, what you do, where you've been, your schooling. So then we have a little bit of credibility in what we're talking about today.
Okay. I grew up in Boone, and I went to Iowa State University and got a bachelor's degree in psychology. And then I took my first job during college. I worked at an assisted living in Ames. And that was kind of where my love for older adults started. And then from there, I went to DMAC because they have a aging longevity certificate. And that was kind of like my first dip in the world of geriatrics outside of work. And so while I was doing that, I found so much love and I got super involved in the community I was working at. And from there, I applied to grad school at the University of Florida to do their master's in gerontology program. And I got accepted, and it was a 2-year program, I think. And I graduated in the fall of 2024. And then from there, I was living down in Alabama while I graduated. And then I worked at the Neurology Center of East Alabama down in Auburn, Alabama. That was right on the Georgia border. And so our demographic was pretty diverse, and we were able to get a lot of people from Alabama and a lot of people from Georgia across the river. And there I worked for a couple neurologists, and I worked with many different patients with many different ailments, ALS, MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and other types of dementia.
It's not on the doctors, the medical side, though. It's more of or tell me, when you were in school, what did you learn? What's the focus? And then when you started working for this doctor, what was your job when you were working with these patients?
Okay. So in school, I did a lot of focus on neurodegenerative studies. So and aging at the molecular level. So we talked a lot about longevity, what causes our body to age, what makes it worse, what speeds it up. We also talked about, the non-clinical side of aging. And, we did a lot of Medicare and what resources are available for older adults. And so I kind of got the best of both worlds in that job. At the Neurology Center, it was weird because I worked as a medical assistant, and so I was a right-hand woman for a neurologist at the office. I worked specifically with her for most of the duration of my time there. But my job really kind of turned into, as we got more staffing, I kind of was able to do a little bit of everything for all of the providers. So I got to know a lot of the providers and kind of what patients they predominantly see. And so I was gathering resources, I was sending most of our referrals, kind of doing that coordination between, okay, you have this diagnosis, you've been referred here, what's next? And I really got to do a little bit of everything. It's kind of hard, it's really hard to just pin it down to a simple job description because it was really whatever they needed me for. If somebody, if a family member was having a crisis with their loved one who had dementia and they called the office, I was kind of that main person to go to see, okay, is this something that I can handle or do I need to pass this on to a provider? And so I really got to be that kind of middleman. And so I got to experience loss, but a lot of great experiences just working with different families and different patients and getting them to where they need to be to succeed.
Yeah, that's amazing because I didn't know that existed before you had mentioned it the other day.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you end up, clearly your family's in Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm assuming that's why you came back and got a job at the Parkinson's Association, and that's where you've been, and that's, when you came back, that's exactly where you went.
Yep, so I was only down there temporarily, and that was, and I knew that. It was not a permanent situation, and so when I was on kind of thinking about moving back and kind of when, I just started applying for jobs, and it was so funny because I had initially my dream was to work for the Alzheimer's Association, but none of their job openings really aligned with what I wanted to do and what would have filled my cup. And so I went on Indeed, and I literally, I searched up nonprofits like the ALS Association, the MS Association, all these different neurodegenerative disorder nonprofits, and I flagged them. So whenever they had job openings, I would get an alert. And it was 6:30 in the morning Eastern time, and I got the notification for this job, and I set my application in, and the process was so long, and it was so worth it though. My recruiter was amazing, and I ended up starting my job 7 days after I moved back.
Wow.
So it was a very quick turnaround.
So what exactly do you do? What are your tasks? What are your responsibilities at the Parkinson's Association?
Sure. So my full title is Manager of Programs and Community Engagement. And so I have a colleague who is also a program manager, but she is part-time. So we actually kind of split the entirety of the role, which is interesting to think about because most places only have one. I know our Missouri chapter, I think they have two, kind of the same dynamic where they split roles within the job. So primarily for me, I manage all of our support groups. So I'm working with all of our support group leaders. I'm giving them the training, and I get them the marketing that they need, and we kind of go through that. We do monthly roundtable discussions where we talk about challenges and strengths within their group, and it's just a really good way to talk about how their group's doing over their lunch. And then quarterly we do training. So this past, I think it was last week, yeah, we had a training, and it was amazing. I was so proud of them for how engaged they became. And we talked about how to engage your group outside or in the community, outside of your meetings. And so we got to talk about that. But additional to that, I oversee all of our exercise programs. So, getting them the community grants, as well as our support groups do get community grants as well. Our June conference, that's in West Des Moines, the first weekend or the first Friday in June. That is my role. And so my whole team has been a huge help because it is a beast of a task. But I have loved every minute of it. I love the chaos, and it keeps me busy. And we always joke that, I show up to work and I make an initial to-do list, and nothing ever gets crossed off because, you always have things flying in throughout the day, different conversations, different ideas, and emails that flood through, so you just never finish anything. But that's kind of the majority of it, as well as just resource referral. So, families or patients can call, and we kind of guide them in the direction of resources that we're connected with. As well as I work with a lot of our main movement disorder specialists and neurologists in the state. So we have good contacts at the University of Iowa and at Unity Point and at Mercy, and working with those clinics on getting patients resources and letting them know that we're a really good second stop in their diagnosis.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yes, and to your point with the schedule or the creation of events, with our Light the Way tour for dementia, we do every 2 weeks. It is heavy. Mm-hmm. We had no idea what we were taking on when we said we're doing this, and now it's like, it's heavy. So yeah, kudos to you. You guys' event is obviously large. It's at Hope, right? Yeah, because we're the hydration sponsors, so
yes.
Yay for us. That's awesome. Okay, so when I came into your office, completely separate, I was coming in there to see Tasha. No, what was I coming in there for? Oh, the app. We were talking about the app.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And somehow, you became my soul sister instantly because I don't know how. I started talking about something with one of our patients or our clients having some sexual troubles, and you said you have to see my sex box. And I was like, this is my girl.
Yes.
Nobody else will talk about this shit with me. I found my soul sister to talk about sex.
Yeah.
I love.
You know, it was like instant. You kind of like just sprouted up, your eyes lit up, and I was like, finally, somebody to like share the enthusiasm around this resource, but also just around this topic. You know, it's not just relevant to individuals with Parkinson's, it's relevant to any older adult. And so I was super excited to have this conversation.
Exactly. And this is why. Is because we're talking about a generation that is taboo. They don't want to talk about it. It's not like this new generation that's willing to talk about anything. Oh. And that's not even you and I. That's like, I would say that's like the younger people, that they're a lot more open. I mean, my generation were a little bit more reserved, but like this generation is not talking about stuff. So as I have gotten close with clients and couples and whatnot, it comes up all the time. My mind was like, I did not know that 85-year-olds have sex problems. Like, as in, like, my husband wants it and I don't want it, or vice versa. A lot of times the women want it and the men's like, well, I can't get it up.
Exactly.
So anyways, I see this box behind me and you're so excited because it's like your baby.
Yes.
Showed up on your doorstep.
It did.
Okay, let's talk about your box quick.
Okay.
I was shocked to see what was in it, but let's talk about what was in it.
Yeah, okay, so the box initially, so when I first learned about the box, we had one in the office and Tasha was like, I have to show you this resource. Or it might have been I was just like snooping through the drawers and I was like, what is this? And I open it because the top of the box, all it says is get it on. And so I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm about to open. So I opened it and it's just this like you would have thought that like golden lights and an was going up when you open this box, but it was just like you're looking at all of these different items in the box and you're like, I'm not sure what this is, because they're not like in a traditional sense. You don't look at these and go, these are used for sex. And so then so I started asking. And Tasha was like, you have to go to our website because I don't know a whole lot about it. And so I went to our website and just found all the information. APDA had won awards for Parkinsex. That's the traditional name that it's kind of like the branded name.
Parkinsex.
Parkinsex. Yeah.
Okay.
And then their trademark is Get It On. So, you open the box and it comes with a feather, a very like similar to these.
Yep.
Similar to these.
A little black one.
Yep. And then it comes with a candle, body oil, hot rocks,
like a mask. I remember that.
A mask, yes. That was my initial confusion starter.
It's like a 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes, that was kind of my. I was just pleasantly surprised because like we talk about, it's just not traditional.
Yeah.
And, you don't see a lot of other nonprofits or really businesses that aren't sex focused. You don't really see these types of resources. And so when I started looking into it and all of the publications behind it and the justification in the book, I was just like, this is where I need to be. I was just like, thank you, God, for putting me in this.
For opening this drawer.
For putting me in such a space because, similar to mental health, I should have mentioned, I'm also still in school. I'm at the University of Iowa getting my degree in social work.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it kind of just really all flows together very nicely. And so I was just like, thank you for putting me in this space, because similar to mental health, same thing as sex, especially in this generation of older adults. Very taboo. We don't talk about it. It's weird. And so I feel like I am in a space where I get to help people come out of their comfort zone, because you don't grow in your comfort zone.
Well, I think what we had talked about is that you try to do like a booth and nobody will look at it. Like everybody just walks past. People are like,
rolling their eyes to see what that is over there, but nobody is stopping because their friends are not going to see that.
Yeah, so I put it on a table at our 2025 conference because, mind you, at this conference, I had only been there less than a month. So I was really just, that is how into it I was. I was like, I don't care who, because everyone, I think the assumption is that it's offensive, because why would you want to talk about this around your peers? Why would you want to talk about this at all? And the main reason to do it was I wanted to do it for the chance that 1 out of 700 people would be curious.
Right.
Because if you can help one person, that is still something. Mm-hmm. And even if nobody asks that day, they're going to go home and say,
what was that box?
Right. Or there are resources out there, And so, like you said, people were just kind of walking by, giving it the side eye, like, what the hell is that? And so since then, we've been trying to like throw it out there. We'll put it in an email like in February for Valentine's Day, and we'll see how much traction that gets. And
does it get traction?
Well, not as much as we want, but it's still enough to make me think like, okay, there's somebody out there who wants to know more about this. And then I found out today, we actually found out that we have a second YouTube channel.
Oh, you do?
We did not realize that. And when we pulled it up, the last video was from 8 years ago. And it was so ironic because the conference, so it was just a bunch of conference videos that people could go rewatch. And one of them was intimacy and Parkinson's. And I'm like, okay, so we have talked about this before.
Yeah.
We just need to dig deeper into it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of on my to-do list to like look at sex therapists in the metro area or in the state of Iowa that have experience working with older adults and kind of going from there.
So something that's really interesting is I follow a lot of Facebook groups that are around dementia, caregivers, spouses, and people say the most, like, I think anonymous questions, I would say.
Yes.
And one of them that comes up a lot is, do you still have sex with your spouse that has Alzheimer's? And most people say no, because they feel like it's like either a child or, or on the other side, if husbands can be super aggressive, like a daughter put that she was taking care of her dad, and he had dementia, and he was like trying to sexually come at his daughter. And so I think that is one that becomes kind of an interesting topic because it's yes, it is the body and your husband, but like the mind is not the same. So there's questions here like this: do they know what's happening? If it's a husband that is engaging with a wife that has dementia, is it consensual at that point? And that's something that would be interesting to, I don't know. Do you have anything to elaborate on that? And that's different than,
So definitely, I definitely have run into not only, residents in a senior community, but also just patients that would come in and kind of bring up the same topic. I think the biggest issue is kind of like you said, you're kind of losing credibility for consent, when the other person has dementia. And the thing that people have to realize is, regardless of your cognition, no matter what stage of impairment you are, that your body still has the same sexual, urges. You're still, and as we age, those urges, diminish with medications.
But do they though? Because I've heard that it like ramps up. Medications, is a different thing. But like, you have teenagers, you have early 20s that are like exploring, figuring things out. They're pound town on anything. But then you have this like era, 20s and 30s, where people are having kids, and I think things shift a little bit because, when you have toddlers and babies and women not feeling their best because their bodies look different and, you're figuring those things out. I think there might be a little bit of a downslide, but I think as kids get older, I'm hearing that, once 40s and 50s pick up, like all of a sudden sex is now important again, but now it's different because it's not, college days where you're doing wild adventures. It's more intimate.
Yes.
It's more making love, I would say.
Yes.
But what happens, when there's the erectile dysfunction kicks in or it's a real problem.
Mhm.
And so, again, that's different than the rabbit hole of dementia that we were just going down and consent. But if it's still there and they have it, I would say that if someone has dementia and they're both consenting, it's probably if they're both comfortable with it, right?
I mean, absolutely. I think it is very much on a case-by-case basis. The spouse without cognitive impairment is going to be the best judge of character in that situation. You know, they've lived a lifetime with this individual, and they're gonna be able to know, okay, they are still sound of mind and able to make this decision. You know, because with different stages of dementia, you know, your physical abilities diminish, and so it's really case by case. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think whether it's husband or wife, I think if both are consenting parties and the spouse that does not have impairment can, you know, safely say that this is a decision not being made, you know, lightly, and I just urge them to be cautious with, they might feel emotionally different afterwards.
Yeah.
I think it might be I think sometimes it's a little weird. And not because it's, you know, sometimes I've heard in just like yours on like, Facebook group pages, I've seen people have the same conversations and how it doesn't feel like they're having sex with the same person.
And luckily, and with dementia, it's an evolution, right? Like, dementia is not something that happens overnight. It's this storybook. So it might start with, like, yeah, you was forgetting things, it was whatever, but then, like, maybe you had sex, and then the next day the husband didn't remember, the wife didn't remember, and you're like, wait a minute. And I feel like that would be the moment that it would be, like, something is different, rather than, like, they had an accident. Like, we were good, and then an accident happened, and then completely different. Yeah. I just feel like it would be kind of, like, almost more of an emotional disappointment.
Yes, I agree. Because I think, you know, kind of how you were saying, you know, once you get over the hump of like having young children and you're kind of flowing into your 40s and 50s, I think sex becomes more intentional.
Yeah.
I think it becomes more meaningful because, you know, like
we're making love rather than a chore.
Yes. Yeah. Like you're doing it to build connection with somebody. And, you know, I think there is an assumption that intimacy just means sex, and that's very untrue. You know, you have emotional intimacy, and physical intimacy can be so much different than sexual intimacy. You know, hand holding, laying together on the couch, you know, just having that meaningful time together. But also deep conversations. Those are great ways to be intimate with your partner. At whatever stage of life you're in. It doesn't matter if you're an older adult, you're a young adult, or, you know, you're middle-aged. I mean, it's a very important part of keeping that connection pure and authentic in your relationship.
And the depth of which it goes is important. And so the reason that I want to really acknowledge this is, I would say almost every client that we have had that has been a couple, honestly, not even just a couple. I have single women too that are like, when my husband died, I wondered what am I supposed to do from here? I'm proud of them for opening up to me, and I know that I have a natural trust with people.
Absolutely.
They just start talking, and a part of it's some of my questions that I ask, and I think that just
I'm never afraid to be nosy.
Right. Curiosity is great, and I'm a very curious person.
Because sometimes you have to pull them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because they have the ability to say, no, I would rather not talk about that.
They never do, though.
But they never do.
They never do.
They're like, oh, this person actually wants to know.
Yeah.
I'll tell them. And then it just leads into more and more. And like you said, you just build that trust almost instantly because you have the balls to be like,
let's talk about this.
How is your sex life?
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, we giggle about it, and it's kind of funny, but... with my clients, I'm saying that we giggle about it because when she said, after my husband died, I mean, it's been 10 years. What am I supposed to do? And I'm like, you know, that's kind of weird because I never thought, I mean, I just thought that people stopped having sex, I guess. And maybe that's very naive of me, and maybe you had that impression at one point, but I'm like, do they just hit an age and then there's just like, well, nothing works and we don't want it anymore? That has been debunked. That is not true. Even when they're 80, they're still wanting to get down with their partner, which I think is sweet too. I guess the point of me saying this is because almost every client has brought it up in one capacity or another, which I appreciate them trusting me to tell me these things.
Absolutely.
This is not an isolated thing. So when people are walking by your booth and they're not wanting to look because of the taboo and the generation that they are, or their wife is like, don't you make eye contact with that, or vice versa. It's almost every single elder person. I mean, it's all of us. It's all of us thinking about it. And if we're not, there's probably more of a mental thing there.
Yes.
You know, because the sexual connection between anybody is meant to go deeper, you know, emotional, mental, all of these things. And if people aren't doing that with their spouse or whatever, you start losing that. And that happens at that age too. And so I think that it's important that we acknowledge to that generation that your husband is not the only horny guy in town.
No.
He's not.
No, and I think especially with age, there are so many complicated factors that can make that worse and can make it better. You know, I worked in the community that I worked in. You know, we had patients in our residents in our memory care community who were, I mean, they weren't sexually active, but they wanted to.
Well, I mean, that's interesting that you bring that up because I hear, I don't know this as a fact, maybe you do, that like STDs are
so prevalent in senior communities. I can't remember if it's more prevalent in nursing homes than it is in like assisted living communities. You would kind of think it's the opposite because usually those in assisted livings are going to be more physically able-bodied. You know, they're going to have a lot more independence and a lot more privacy because, you know, with nursing homes it's
open door.
Yeah. And so it's kind of a toss-up, and I really don't remember, and I don't want to misspeak, but yes, it's a very. I was actually talking about something the other day. Like, sex education needs to go beyond middle school.
Right.
It needs to be everywhere. It's actually on my bucket list to be able to do that someday because somebody has to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because I think we're losing.
You know what? I wonder. Again, like if we were to hold one, like go around to communities and say we're holding a senior citizen sex education, would we have 0 people because they are so ashamed that they're not coming? Or would we have, if everybody showed up, you know, it'd take 1 person and then 2 people, and then once the second person's there, then the third person like, well, Bob and Dick are there, I'm going.
Well, you know what? Slap a cup of coffee or some sort of snack, and that's gonna get 2 people just by that.
Right.
I mean, and I think if anything, you know, it's gonna get a good laugh.
Yeah.
You know, but I truly think just starting the conversation is gonna get flowing. No pun intended. I love that you say that because that is just like one of my like daydreams. Just like going to these communities because they need it.
What if we should try that? What would we talk about? Okay, let's talk about what we
safe sex.
Okay, all right. So let's say we're gonna go do this. All right, we're gonna start a small conference. We're gonna start it small. We're gonna maybe do it at like one of the communities in town.
I think, and I was actually talking about this with a colleague the other day about how do you don't just like jump in to let's talk about sex.
Well, we kind of have to.
You do, but I think a really good way to kind of inch that big bad word into a conversation is you are now a caregiver or you are your spouse's care partner. How is your relationship changing? Your roles in the relationship are changing. Your level of intimacy is changing. And with that comes sexual challenges, sexual dysfunction, hypersexuality. You know, there are questions. And, you know, we could do it anonymous style. You show up and you don't ask any questions and you write down questions and then, you know, but then it's like, you know, because like in school, I remember we had it for like a solid 2 weeks. And at the end of the class, you would write your question and then to keep it anonymous, she would just read the questions the next class so that everyone was getting the answers to the questions so that they were still learning, but we were able to keep the author of the note anonymous.
Right.
Because sometimes some of the questions were a little out there, and so I really don't know. I think it's definitely worth a shot, because I think I would not die peacefully if I didn't try.
I mean, exactly. I would agree. We've got to try it. There's people out there dying to know.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we've got to get so creative and think of ways to make it fun, because no one wants to show up and just learn about safe sex, using protection. You know, we're going to get comments like, oh,
what is this, middle school?
I can't get pregnant.
I would say that my clients who I have put in places, I think they would show, like, the one that's a woman that I'm thinking of that was hilarious about it. I feel like she'd, like, get her friends and be like, we should go to this. This is...
Yeah. Like a ladies' night type situation.
Maybe we should do a ladies' night with, like, wine. We can do one with men and then one with women.
Uh-huh.
Start there. Maybe we start with, like, separating them.
That'd be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think just kind of, because they're both going to have different perspectives of the different situations. And I like the idea of kind of splitting them up. Even if it's not a husband and wife that we're splitting up to get, I think men and women have always and always will have different outlooks on sex and sexual, you know, just how you are in your relationship as far as intimacy. So I think we would get very different conversations, you know, because they might not be the person with dementia or Parkinson's,
right?
Whatever diagnosis they have, they could just be struggling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the men would probably focus on, like, when do I see my doctor? Or, you know, how do I get my wife to be interested in me? And I am the perfect person to give that answer. You want to know how to get your wife hot on to you, honey? Let me tell you. Let me give my list there, buddy. And then the women, I feel like their list would be a little bit different, their questions. I don't know, what do you think the women would ask?
I think they'd be a little bit more traditional. Kind of like...
I don't know. Some of them, I think, if we give them some wine and loosen them up,
I
think we're going to hear their inner thoughts on...
I think, so, you know, with women, I think as we age, and, you know, a lot of that generation has birthed children, their body has changed immensely, you know, depending on what they've gone through health-wise in their older years. I mean, they might have completely changed from how they used to look, how they used to feel. And so I think, and I kind of just said that, now it reminds me of a point, is sometimes they worry about how they feel. It's not about how they look, but they just don't feel right. And the question is it a separate issue that can help this? Do they need to start taking more interests? Do they need to, you know, because they could be having anxiety, they could be having depression. You know, what outside of this? What is secondary to this?
I think I might know. Do you want to know a secret?
Yeah.
I think they want younger men.
Really?
This is why. Yeah. So men want younger women when they're in their 50s. Like, you know, they have their midlife crisis, and then all of a sudden... I think that when they're 80, 70, 80, I think their husband may have issues. And then I think that they're looking at... All of the women that I'm thinking about have literally said, like, they want a younger man.
Now, how much younger are we talking here?
Yeah, I mean, I truly think that they are looking for a man that can still, like, move, like, maybe it's them wanting to think about the younger years with their husband. I don't know. But, like, they all make jokes about it, and jokes are only jokes until they've been said so many times, and then you're like, this isn't a joke anymore, is it? Like,
see, I love that you have had so much, like, real hands-on experience. And I just learned what I learned in school, you know, the basics, but you have had conversations with these people, and, you know, it's a lived experience for you, getting to listen to them talk about it and ask their questions and relay their challenges. But I'm curious, in all of your conversations that you've had, you know, like, what are some common things that you find are being, like, brought up? Whether it's, like, questions or experiences, like, what are, like, the common issues going on?
It's just one partner is not there or incapable, like should not be not able to, and then the other partner's like, what am I supposed to do? And let's talk about that. Let's get into it, like where we talked about it a little bit with the dementia, but also if someone just can't because they're, you know, their mind might be there but their body's not there, which is or whatever. What is a person supposed to do when they have made vows to their spouse? They want to honor those, but everybody has needs. And so, you know, I think that they kind of get in that situation of, I cannot have sex or intercourse or anything with my spouse. I mean, they're in the nursing home and whatever. What am I supposed to do? And I get it. And that's one question that actually comes up a lot is, and I don't know, because you have to have a conversation with yourself on, you made vows how many years ago? But you also have needs.
I think, you know, especially with spouses or couples where one spouse, let's say, is in a nursing home or in community living because they do have dementia or cognitive impairment. I think the biggest thing is that there is no guidebook, there's no rule book, there are no rules. And I think it is specific to the individual because I think it has to do with comfortability, their own personal morals and values, you know, and I'm no marriage expert.
This is not marriage counseling for anybody.
Disclaimer.
This is disclaimer. So our disclaimer is this is not marriage counseling. This is not church. We're not your pastors either.
No, but I think, you know, as far as vows go, I think they're and especially in their generation, you know, when they got married, not today's world where we get married now. I think there has to be some sort of, I don't really know how to say it, but for example, if I was the spouse and I knew ahead of time, you know, like this time is going to come. There's going to be a time where one of us is going to be, like, let's say I just left the doctor with a diagnosis of dementia. And so we start making all these plans. And so those conversations, as uncomfortable as they are, I think it mitigates these issues where we don't know what to do, we're confused, and we're just nervous about making the wrong decision. Start having those conversations now.
Right.
You know, because above all else, I mean, honesty and being open about that and communicating about what you're going to do. You know, let's say, hey, what if there comes a time where I have to move you into a nursing home or a senior community because you're no longer able to care for yourself and I can't care for you either? You know, what is the expectation here? And I think, you know, for myself and obviously I can't say this for certain because I am not married and, you know, have not made those vows, but I feel like some people are going to want their loved one to move on with their life and to live a life that is happy to them. And, you know, there are going to be couples who think the opposite. They're going to be like, I could never do that, you know, but like you said, there are those desires and needs that everyone has that become prevalent at some point in their life. And, you know, it's really just what you value most. And, you know,
I would agree with you, and this is controversial, and this might be the controversial part on here, but when I have people my age come at me, and we drove to Iowa City, Tasha and Amanda and I, and we had this conversation in the car about people our age and our friends that come at us, and you know, they talk about how they don't like to have sex with their spouse, and you know, they hate everything about it. And then, you know, years go by and they've talked about these things. And the next thing we know, there's this, my husband's been cheating on me for years scandal. And while I want to sit there with my friend and hate on her husband for betraying her, there's also some level of betrayal there because you did marry him. And with that comes a responsibility of that intimacy, of keeping each other happy in that space. That is, in my opinion, important in every marriage. And if you have a wife that is refusing, we also as human have needs. So which are you putting, what belongs ahead of each other? Your own personal needs. And there's some people that are just not sexual, right? For whatever reason. But I don't think that because that is one person's space, one person can't make that the other person has to be a victim.
Yes, no, to not even countering that, but it's always deeper than just sex.
Yeah.
There is a deeper reason behind this, and that requires communication. So, to kind of get on your point of there is that responsibility, I don't necessarily think that it's a responsibility to have sex to meet those needs and desires of the other person, but rather you said those vows and you have a responsibility to this other person to communicate what is going on.
Yeah. Because
that is unfair.
Yeah.
They might be perceiving it as you don't like them anymore, you're not attracted to them anymore. And, what if it's really just you don't feel comfortable in your own body? You don't like the way having sex feels anymore. Like, it just needs to be communicated. I think that can really mitigate a lot of issues, a lot of incorrect assumptions. And, at the end of the day, cheating is cheating and it's still wrong. But I don't necessarily disagree that there is some level of responsibility to your partner.
Yeah.
Whether it's to meet their needs and desires or to at least give them the respect of communicating why this is happening.
Yeah. I would 100% agree that things start breaking down always because of communication. And that goes for our senior citizens as well. It's funny that you said that those conversations can be hard, because I have had that conversation with Chase before. If something were to happen to me now or whenever, there are people out there, and this actually is something that drives me crazy, is you have people that say, don't ever put me in a nursing home. Don't ever put me in that spot. It's actually a pet peeve, and this is why. It's kind of selfish, because the idea that you are a full care person, if you are supposed to be in a nursing home, but you're a full care person, you have now put the stress on your family that they need to keep you at home no matter the condition. Everybody's life revolves around you no matter what, because you have said, do not put me in those spots. So now you have grandma who can't go to her grandchildren's soccer game or their birthday parties or this or that, because she's got to stay at home with grandpa who may have dementia or all of these different things and she's a caretaker. So she's not a grandma, she's not a mom. And I think that's a heavy responsibility and something, because I hear it all the time. My mom said I can never put her in the nursing home. So now all of a sudden, this is the generation that it is it's grandma and grandpa, and then you have great grandma and grandpa, da-da-da. So now grandma and grandpa are not able to enjoy their grandkids or their kids because they have got to be full-time caretakers for their parents. And so now, let's talk about the sexuality. Let's call our daughter Judy is now almost negligent or neglectful to her husband because she's taking care of mom and dad. So it's just a really heavy thing, in my opinion, to say to someone to never put me in that spot. So to what you had said, I've told my family that if something ever happens to me and you have to become a caretaker, you can put me in a spot that I'm safe. Please don't desert me and never come see me and, just leave me out to dry. If it means that, my husband has to move on, it just kind of, it's not what we wanted. You know what I mean? It's not how anybody anticipates life to be.
But it is what it is.
Yes.
I'm kind of torn. I'm torn at this topic because I myself have, I have all my funeral plans written out. I have everything you could ever think of written out because I don't have the desire to put that stress on my family. And I have always told my family, if something were to ever happen to me and I became completely incapable of caring for myself, I was like, I give you permission. Put me somewhere where you can live a life.
Yeah.
And not worry about me. You can visit me. Please do.
Please come and see me.
But live your life, But then you have my dad who, small town farmer, you know how that goes. And, he's just like, never put me in one of those nursing homes.
Yeah.
And I have told him, I said, that is fine. because I'm always on his case about getting long-term care insurance, because I think the assumption is that long-term care insurance only covers long-term care. It covers, depending on the business, it can cover private home care, that kind of thing. And that's the route I was going down. And I kept telling him, I'm like, but I'm not putting you in long-term care. I need you to have a safety net, or if something were to happen to you, and I don't wish to move you out of this home because you would not be your happiest self, and I don't want you to die unhappy, but I know that you would also be miserable if you knew that I gave up my life to care for you.
Bingo.
And he was like, you're right, I would. And he was like, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to give up your hard work and your money. Like, I don't want you to have to give up or sacrifice anything on my behalf. And so it always comes down to the conversation of, are you going to go get long-term care insurance so that if something were to ever happen, God forbid, we have that safety net of money to potentially cover in-home care? Because, yes, I am very blessed with the knowledge of resources in my community to be able to make that transition as peaceful as it can be. Other people don't, and that's why we do what we do. And, and so it is a little bit of a different situation when, you have someone in your family who is very in tune to what is available. And for that, I am so grateful, because I confidently live knowing that I will be able to they will be able to die how they want to die, if it is not tragic, God forbid. And so I'm kind of torn, because on one hand I'm like, please put me somewhere, do not care about me, like, do not care for me. I don't want that for you.
But also, not to interrupt you, but to your point, like, I don't want my husband to be wiping my ass. Or my kids. Like,
I don't.
You know what I mean?
And neither does my father or my mother.
And that's what's gonna happen if you want me to be the caretaker, and you're saying that is what's gonna happen.
And I will say, though, in working in community living, you see that a lot. You have family members that come in and they're helping get them dressed, they're helping them shower, they're helping them change. And while the intention is good, you are taking so much dignity away. And it's never intentional, it's never purposeful, and it's never out of a bad place. Because you're being helpful. Yeah. You're doing what you think is helpful, but in that other person's shoes, how harmful to their dignity to have someone that they raised, they took care of, they changed, showered, clothed, fed. Now, for some people it's a full circle moment. Myself, I think I would be torn, because I think it would be an invaluable experience to be able to give back and care for my whether it's my grandparents or my parents in that way. But it just wouldn't sit right with me, because I know that, whether they're cognitively impaired and that's why I'm helping them, if that was the case, I think I would carry a lot more guilt with helping them with those things, because I know that in their sound of mind, this would be humiliating.
Yes.
And
I would agree.
And so it's
a breakdown of a relationship. You're no longer the daughter, the granddaughter, the husband, the wife. You are now...
Your roles change extensively. And I think that in itself is where intimacy issues, to kind of jump back into kind of the change in roles, a huge thing. Because again, with dignity, if your spouse is having to help you use the restroom, help you shower,
Right.
It's
no longer
you
a
lose
wife.
You lose that sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You.
It's no longer a husband and wife. It's a caretaker and wife, or caretaker and husband. It goes both ways. And I think that there's the guilt on the caretaker too. Like, I'm this person's nurse. I mean, they can't even bathe themselves, but the expectation is that, it's a hard one.
It is a hard one, because I think, I think some people, and I mean when I say some, because I've only encountered it a couple times, but there are some people out there that kind of have this saviorism complex when it comes to caring for their parents. You know, they maybe have this like this excessive need to please them or to make them proud or to prove themselves. And so sometimes I think they do this, care for them, or, you know, in that way to fulfill that need for them, which says a lot more about that person than the situation. But there are some people out there that do it for selfish reasons too. Yeah. And so more conversations need to be had about that as well, because I think sometimes perspective is everything. And I think the more you talk about different perspectives, the more questions are going to come up, the more thoughts and conversations that are going to be had. And just, you know, oh, I've been doing this, but you just shared something that makes sense. You know, so it's those types of things, because caring for a loved one in kind of a reverse role can be very humiliating.
In all things, I think, like financially, physically, mentally, all of those things, I think if a person was in their full capacity, I would assume that they don't want their kids to be able to, or take all of that responsibility on. But I think the kids, they think they owe it to them because comments have been made. Don't put me in one of those places. But again, I think if we broke it down and we actually asked people, okay, so this is what you're saying, and this is the weight that you're putting on them. And if they follow through with it, you're breaking down their lives, their relationships, their intimacy. I mean, you know what I mean? Like if you're at your grandparents', if you're at your parents' house giving your parents baths and, you know, you ain't going home hot for your husband. But it's so important, and I don't think people understand that chemistry. And even just being next to your spouse, the cuddling, all of that is so important. And I think people hit an age and they just think that it's, well, we've been married for 50 years, so everybody has needs. And I'm afraid that it's...
And sometimes those needs don't have to be sexual. I think that's another assumption, you know, like someone who's in their 80s, you know, their intimate need could seriously be just someone to lay with.
Yeah.
Someone to have deep conversations with. Just someone to, you know, it just looks so different for everybody. And for those older adults out there whose intimate need is to have sex, you know, there's a lot of hoops and a lot of hoops to jump through. So we got to figure out what we can do for this community.
I think so, and I think that the reason that they get caught up in it is because it is taboo to them. They're not gonna go and talk to anybody except for if I walk in and I'm like, all right, let's talk about your whatever.
Yeah,
see how that goes. And then they spill beans, and men talk about it too with me. Like I feel like I must have something on my forehead that says, if you want to talk about your sex
can
problems,
trust me.
Yes.
Tell me about your sex life.
Yes. And sometimes they say things and I don't know the answer. I'm like, I don't know what to do about that. And it's so funny because I do have one lady that's in independent living, and her husband did die just a few years ago, and they were apparently doing it right up until and she's like, I don't know, in her 80s.
Shout out to them.
I know, and she was like, when he died, I was just like, the one thing I thought about was like, so where am I gonna get it now? And I was like,
so you know, I just and that is someone, and I truly think that I have a hunch that she either grew up with siblings or parents that were not afraid to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, it could be that just came with older age, but I seriously think that.
Well, she's not talking to her kids about it because they would be like taken back. I mean, they would be like.
You always see on TV, like I'm watching Grace and Frankie right now, on Netflix, and you know, some of the conversations that these women are comfortable having in front of their children, I'm like, you know, and I'm sitting here from the perspective like that's really funny, you know, like that. I love the openness, but then I think about my own self, and I'm like, please never talk about that in front of me.
Right.
But then I get so torn and contradicted because I'm like, okay, well, I'm a health professional. Like, I would talk about this with anybody else my parents' age. Why is it so awful?
With your parents, right.
It's like they're human beings. They have needs, whether they be sexual or other types of intimate needs. And it's like, you know, should adult children of parents be that listening ear? Or do we come to the table with too much bias, too much judgment?
It's a great question, because I can, myself personally, I'm very uncomfortable talking about that stuff with I would never talk about that with my parents, my grandparents. And I've actually thought about, and it's probably because the way I was raised, right? Like, my mom did, though. She read a sex book to us. Like, she got little books for us when we were, I would say, like, probably 12, 13.
Oh.
I don't know as if I'm having a conversation with her about these things, you know, but, like, she wanted to make sure that we were, you know, somewhat educated and not, like, you know, completely. But like, yeah, I don't think I would be comfortable. Granted, I do have a teenage daughter, and I have gotten her those books too, and we've kind of gone through, like, you know, different things. It talks about, like, puberty and kind of what you said. You kind of work into it. You don't go straight to whatever. But I'm hoping, though, that me having those conversations with my daughter makes it so she's never afraid to come to me. Granted, I don't ever see a time in my life that if my daughter came to me and, like, told me details, that I would be comfortable.
Right.
You know,
I totally agree. Like, have you watched Yellowstone?
No.
But
that goes for, like, not to interrupt you, but, like, my values too. I am not a person that, like, walks around with lingerie on. You're not going to see me with my butt cheeks out. Maybe at the beach if I have, like, a swimsuit on. I still dress pretty conservatively, and I think that goes for, like I'll talk about sex and stuff with my friends, but I'm not one that's like, you have to leave some stuff for the bedroom between you and your husband.
Yeah, right? There's got to be some sort of privacy in, you know, in the relationship. I'm kind of the same way, you know, in any aspect of my life. I am not a closed book. There is not a whole lot of topics or things in my mind that I don't just willingly share, because and some people find that disrespectful. Sometimes they find, like, why would you talk about this? I don't want to know about this. And my thought is just, like, you know, kind of with having children and having that conversation with them. I think when you kind of just bite the bullet and just make it as awkward as possible, it's going to get awkward less and less each time. And then hopefully, you know, I'm not opening a door for horrendously awkward conversations to be happening. Like, I don't need to know the nitty-gritty details, but there is this comfortable space where we have talked about this, and questions, concerns, problems, those types of things should never be in the awkward category, you know?
I would agree. I think that's, yeah, exactly what I was maybe trying to say, and you just said it better, of I am an open book when it comes to, like, let's talk about the problems. I want to have sex with my wife, but I can't even get her to acknowledge me. Let's talk about that. However, like, I don't exactly want to, like, go into, like, I'm not a sex therapist. I have no desire. But, like,
I get it. There's a bit, it's kind of a weird topic, but I really encourage you to watch this show, because not only is it funny, but it kind of just gives insight into what it looks like to have those kind of conversations with your child. So it's a show called Sex Education. It's on Netflix. It is so good. It's set in London, like the countryside of London, and the main character's mom is a sex therapist, and she does therapy from inside her home. And so he obviously has learned a lot from listening to our conversations, and she is very open about it. Very, very open. Like, she actually becomes concerned at one point because he's not having sex. And so she's like, is it a you issue? What's going on? You know, and so it just shows how far, and the whole point of the show, call it Sex Education, was that he then does it at school for free. Well, not for free. He, like, it's like him and this girl that kind of partner up, and she's kind of like sets him up and takes the money, and he does all the work. It's kind of this, like, cute little business, but he does, like, sex therapy out of the bathroom at school.
Out of the bathroom? Why wouldn't you?
Right.
Charge for it.
Right. I just think it kind of demonstrates that there can be a comfortable line of conversation. I just totally agree with you that there is a fine line to not cross.
Yeah.
In the parent-child relationship, and that's not for everybody.
Right.
That, you know, if you have that relationship with your parent, I am all for it. You're not going to get any judgment from me, and you shouldn't get any judgment for anybody else, because that is your life and that is your truth. Now, if that was my truth, I would never leave my house.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree. I don't want my parents to have to visualize me like that, you know, like that's weird for me.
Well, I actually talked about this like last night. It was like, imagine how awkward it is to tell your parents that you're pregnant, because now they know that you have sex.
So that's funny that you bring that up. One thing that I think is funny is I one time heard this friend ask another friend, I was like a bystander of this, when are you gonna have a baby? And the mom said, they're trying. I'm like, Mom, not my mom, someone else's mom. Do you know what that actually means? Like, you're saying, she's having sex.
A lot of it.
Literally, that's what you're, like, putting there. And I'm like, because that's what they say. Well, she's trying. I mean, you're...
Like, that is a really good point, you know? Because I think in that regard, when it has to do with creating another life, I think that is also opening another door for a certain level of comfortability with your parent. You know, I mean... I've never been, like, a very open person about, like, for health reasons. Doctor has always scared me. I don't care to go to the doctor at all. But, you know, like, I'm thinking, like, okay, most people want their mom in the room when they give birth. I don't know that I wish to have anybody in the room when I give birth.
No.
Maybe my best friend.
Maybe your husband.
Yeah, him too, I guess. But,
there's a lot. There's nurses. The nurses are the best.
Yes,
you know,
yes, so, but like being open, like, Mom, we've been trying for months and can't get pregnant, and then it's just, I mean, if that's what you're comfortable with, but that is just not something that, and maybe that'll change, because I know a lot of mother-daughter relationships change as you get older and you are, you know, married and have children. I think it very much changes and you become open about those types of parts of life, but... I
think the mom and the dad would probably say something like, okay, if you've tried a long time, then this is, like, maybe something we can help you find the right doctor to go to see, you know, further tests. I think that is a direction I would go. If a friend came to me and said, I'm struggling getting pregnant, I'd be like, did you try this position? Did you try to do that position? I hear when you do it like this.
Yes.
2 different conversations, 2 different dynamics, 2 different people.
Very. And, you know, from the other side of...
That's why you need girlfriends and moms.
That's right. Well, that's so funny that you say that, because my best friend and I, we love, so, like, we would, like, go out. We don't really go out anymore because now I just feel like we're getting old, but we would go out, and then the next morning we would come out and we would recap the entire night with my mom. And it was like she was so comfortable being so open with my mother that I would never dream of having those conversations. And then I find myself doing the same thing with her mother.
Yes.
Or another person's mother. And then it makes me feel bad, like, oh my God, can I not trust my mother now? And it's like, no, but I think that's just a normal instinct to, because it is different. It is different, you know?
Well, it's the same thing with us. Like, there will be seniors that will not let their kids in anything, you know, because it's little Johnny, it's little Steve, little whatever. They don't want their kid to know anything because they don't want the burden on them. Granted, I'm a company and they're hiring me to come in and help.
Yep.
But they're like, they tell us everything. They, you know, even the sex, the financials, the ins and the outs of the relationship and all of that. They'll tell us all day long. They're not telling their kids that stuff. I mean, I think it's just you want your kids to stay kids, no matter the age.
They're always going to be your babies in your eyes. I totally get that. I can totally see that. You know, I think that's another big challenge is, you know, having that conversation. Does that mean that you have to accept that they're now an adult? I think that's a huge thing, because you're not going to have those conversations with someone when they're 6 years old, when they're a child, a child, you know. But when you do have those conversations, or you start teaching them how to drive, or you start slowly introducing them to different types of alcohol, if that's the kind of family or household that you live in, you know, doing that is you are self-accepting that your child is now becoming an adult.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing for some parents to accept.
Yeah. Widowhood, that's a big one. Obviously, we've talked on that. How do we meet people? And I don't know if there's like an open dating line like there is, all the apps or whatever. I don't think those exist, or do they? Is there an app for older?
I don't think so, but I really should look into that. But I think sometimes, this is funny, we'll kind of sidetrack a little bit. I had a patient who came in with their spouse, and whenever I'd have married couples come in, they were older adults, I always asked them, how long have you been married? What's the secret? Just to get some conversation starters. And they were like, oh, we've only been married like a couple years. Both of our spouses died. The husband was married to his now wife's sister. And so it was like, so I think a lot of times older adults, their relationships are a little authentic. Like they're just naturally. And I think a lot of times they're people that they've known, whether it's a friend of a friend that was, widowed, or, their spouse is sick and in a nursing home and not their same selves,
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they're seeking it like that, because that technology is...
Well, I think they'd get scammed.
Absolutely.
If someone knew about that. I would assume, I don't know, I've not been on the apps, but I'm assuming that there's probably an age range that you can go put in there. My concern with that would be scammers would definitely go into that age range.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what I think is scary for like across the board. So you're probably right. That's their option. We have a lady that she slept with her sister's husband while they were married.
Oh my.
And so there's some family drama there. This is another funny tidbit I have. I think that generation has more drama.
For sure.
More crazy stuff that have happened. It's just not on social media. There wasn't phones. Like,
yes.
I think crazy happened. It just isn't.
Yes, absolutely. And just kind of like thinking about it, they do so much to meet different people. My generation likes to just sit at home and do nothing. And they're very, I shouldn't say that, but the younger generations are very,
They might be doing something. They're on the apps on their phone.
Yes, they're not going out. But these older adults, they're going to the senior center, they're going to church, they're volunteering. They are doing so much.
They're in the independent living community.
Yes. Any sort of senior community. I mean, they have so many options. And it's like the perfect place.
I have said that those independent and assisted communities are college dorms.
Oh, 100%.
They are.
100%. I love that you said that. That's so funny.
Totally college dorms.
Yeah, like they need to have condom dispensers outside.
Yes.
Just like dorms do.
We should recommend that.
We should. On top of, yes, we'd like to come to your community and teach your residents about safe sex and intimacy challenges. We're going to have a bucket of condoms. Is that okay?
Yeah. We will sneak them under doors.
Because it's just like you put them out and then like I'm just secretly watching like, who's going to take them?
I don't think anyone would, I think they would be so shameful to grab them that they would never get used. You'd have to like sneak them into room. Like we're putting these in everybody's rooms. Just put them in the trunk drawer. They're there if you need them. But I think that they would be like so...
I think they'd just their face would get so flushed, they'd be blushing, just like, oh my god.
I think it's a good idea. We should start something. Okay, this is a whole other thing. We're gonna save all of these for our actual thing that we do. These are like dating after a loss, erectile changes, medication side effects, shame, religion, we kind of touched on all those, consent and dementia, STI risk. I definitely think that we should look into elaborating this more and specifically hitting that community.
Oh, that need? Because it exists. And what I can do, I need to just start reaching out to all of my friends and my peers and just asking, what do you know? What are you hearing? Because the thing is though, is like, I don't remember. Like, I worked at that senior community for 3 or 4 years, and I seriously do not remember one issue around sex, intimacy issues, STD spreads. Like, I seriously cannot recall a time that I heard about that.
I can't either.
But there are people out there that swear up and down that it exists, and I believe them. I don't doubt it. How do we gauge the need? Because if we do it at one community, then we're semi-limiting it. You know, people can come in from other communities, but who's gonna?
I feel like you could move around. I feel like you could, like, if you get traction at one, and it seems to be a thing, then you schedule up the next one and the next. You know what I mean? Like you kind of like build off of what works and what doesn't work.
It's almost there needs to be like an older adult friendly brochure. Just like something that's not like screaming sex, but more so intimacy. And then it kind of, because there's just a lot to think about. We need to like go get a drink or four.
Yeah,
and have
a few shots would really get the ideas flowing.
Oh, they'd get really funny.
We're gonna need to record the conversation though, so then we can remember everything we thought of the next day.
Yeah, brainstorming sessions typically do better when there's boozing.
Yeah. I think anyone listening to this, if you have any ideas or questions, and I know that like you're not going to do it because if you have to put a comment on this, people aren't comfortable. But if you could send it in to us,
DM it.
Yeah. What is it that you think would be a good thing for us to cover? And we can find the professional to be able to come in.
I'm almost certain that somebody that I have worked with in the past who's an occupational therapist, and when I found this out, I started asking all of my OT friends, like, have you guys covered sex in your curriculum? Like, do you teach it? Did you learn it? Like, are there OTs that specialize in this? And they were like, well, it's not very traditional, but the person that I know is a sex therapist, I think she's in, like, the Davenport, Bettendorf area. And so I really should connect with her and see what her input is and what she's doing. I don't know if she's doing, like one-on-one or like couples or like is she doing like community-based, because I am so for the community outreach part of it, because I think that's a really good way to reach. Yes, because those people who are doing one-on-ones and couples, like they are willingly, independently seeking this. And sometimes what you need is not something that you seek.
It needs to find you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And we are finders.
We are. Even if it's a little forceful, we will find you.
We will be coming for you. We want you to learn. We want you to make sure that this last chapter isn't all about like, oh, never got laid. My wife was not into me.
Death, medications, die.
Exactly. And if it's that your husband has passed away or your wife's passed away and you have desires to be a cougar or a sugar daddy, whatever you want, we can help your wildest dreams come true.
Will?
There are younger people out there that are also looking to match with you. It's just a matter of connecting you. We're going to change your job title. Parkinson's Association, she will no longer be your gal anymore. She is moving into Cupid.
Love that. Love that. Matchmaker. I was born to do that.
You were born to do it.
I was.
And then after, you can help them to make sure that they're living their best life.
Exactly. I wish I could live 5 lifetimes so that I could do all of my jobs that I want.
I know. Right.
Lawyer, photographer, all the things.
I actually love Golden Concierge. I feel bad for people that don't have jobs that they don't love, because like Golden Concierge is my baby. I love it. And I would put our customer service to every client that we have against every single company out there, and I know that we would beat them only because we are so passionate and genuine about what we do. And I truly feel bad for people that dread going to work every single day. I work 7 days a week, which sounds miserable to people that hate their job. However, I also have a very structured schedule that I get my kids up every morning, take them to school. My day does not start until after my kids are at school. And then I am home to pick them up typically. I've never missed a game, never missed a dance. I've never missed anything. But the flop side of that is I do work 7 days a week. I may not be available at 3 o'clock on Monday, but I am available at 3 o'clock on Sunday. So, that's a completely different podcast, but
it's a give and take.
Yeah.
And if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
The words of Troy Wilson, my father.
I love it. I think we should make a quote for the wall. Okay, I'm looking forward to doing this again. We have to keep doing these talks and finding different things and getting people to ask us questions that, because if they're asking it, everybody's asking it.
That might be the first step.
Yeah.
Doing like an anonymous forum or an anonymous questionnaire. Like submit your questions and we'll answer them. I think that would be really fun. Really fun. Put it on some like aging Facebook groups and forums just everywhere. Submit your questions anonymously. Tune in.
We'll answer.
We'll answer them.
We'll get experts.
Yeah, if we don't have the answer, we will find someone who does. That's my motto for life. We had actually talked about that when you came in. You know, most of the time, if someone calls and asks me about, where can I get this? I need this type of help, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't personally know that, but I'm going to find you someone who does, because I know it's out there, and I know it, so.
We should have, do you think your friend who's a sex therapist, could we have them come on and talk about different things that they, way beyond our expertise?
Way beyond. Yeah, I'll have to reach out to her. You know, she might, I assume she has the same passion of, and I don't even know if she does older adults. She might be doing just all ages. Who knows? But I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember who I was talking with. I think it was my colleague with the PMD Alliance, the Parkinson's and Movement Disorder Alliance, because we were talking about doing kind of similarly to this, about talking about intimacy and caregiving, and she was like, oh, we need to talk to this person. I was like, I didn't know they were sex therapists. She was like, yeah, they are. I'm like, oh my god.
Right.
More people need to do
that. Right. I mean, it needs to be talked about. Okay, that's our goal, is we need to find a sex therapist to talk about what older adults can do to, because we know that they're not like bending over the washing machine.
No. Sex looks so different as you age.
So different.
But it doesn't have to feel different, but it certainly might look different.
Yeah, that box said that there are some things that are a little bit mischievous. You can still have
You can still spice it up.
Yes.
Whatever age.
Swings, handcuffs. There was handcuffs in there!
No, there was not! If there was handcuffs in there, I would have...
Oh, maybe we just...
I would have fallen out of my chair. Just dead fallen out of my chair.
Alright, handcuffs are going in those boxes.
Seriously, make our own box.
Let's make our own boxes. There's about to be new boxes called
no copyright issues, please.
No, what?
No copyright issues.
Yeah, nobody can copy our boxes once they go out.
No, but that would be, yeah, I think kind of like having the conversation and getting experts to come in and like redirecting, okay, so obviously there is changes with intercourse as we age, but how do we, one, talk about the changes, and two, how do we promote how to replace the losses of what sex looks like when you're younger? You know? And that's what we gotta do.
Right, because it's not, you're not in the backseat of the car anymore. You're not, like I said, there's things that I'm like, grandma and grandpa aren't doing that. They still need to...
I hope not, but they might be.
They might be.
And you know what? Shout out to them.
If they can make it happen, then...
It keeps you young.
Who needs to stop them?
It keeps you young. It really does. Because it's a stress reliever, and one of the biggest parts of aging longevity issues is stress. So the more that you can relieve stress and have that, I mean, some could say sex makes you younger. It keeps you young.
It keeps you young. So I will say this on an ending note, which is, hopefully my kids never watch this, but like, when you have sex with your spouse, it shows up outside of the bedroom too.
Definitely.
I mean, like, there will be times that like my husband and I are just, whatever, but like, it's so funny because if we get on a streak, my kids will be like, why are you guys hugging all the time? Why do you guys look at each other like that? And it's funny to me because like, it shows up outside the bedroom.
They notice.
Yes. They're noticeable. Not connecting the dots, obviously. No. But to me, it's funny because I'm like, well, don't ask.
Just enjoy it.
We're just hugging. But it's like, it was just like, we just feel a lot more
that
connected.
Connection. Yeah, that connection it's showing.
It's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited to do this again.
I do.